Welcome to Melt University. This series will help you build your brand, inform you on a variety of career paths, and introduce you to top executives in sports and marketing. Now, here's your host, the president and CEO of Melt, one of the largest independent sports and event marketing agencies in the country, Vince Thompson.
Welcome back, students of Virtual Melt University. We are rolling on through the spring break, spring semester, graduation, spring football. Hope springs eternal. Hopefully we'll have some full college football stadiums, and we really appreciate, all of our special guests, all of the comments and feedback that we're getting from you and we're getting from the guests as you continue to participate, and we continue to help you navigate the COVID and a post-COVID, hopefully post-COVID, knock on wood, employment world going forward. And we've had some fascinating conversations and continuing to really, really, truly enlighten our students on how many opportunities there are going to be for you going forward. It may be a little bit of the tumble cycle going forward, but as this economy comes back, I think it's going to be tremendous opportunities. Today we have a very, very special guest, a person that I have admired professionally and personally for a very long time. Julie Bowerman now is the Chief Global Digital Consumer and Customer Experience Officer at the Kellogg Company. One of my lifelong favorite companies, with the many incredible brands, many brands. I've actually been to Battle Creek, Michigan one time, made a presentation for some of your brands. And it was just, it's like, oh my God, this was the center of the universe for me for many years. And but Julie and I first met. She's was a longtime veteran at the Coca-Cola Company, rose through the ranks there and led the development of one of at the time, and still is, one of the most biggest programs the Coca-Cola Company had ever done, the My Coke Rewards digital initiative, which was massive. And we've talked a lot to a lot of our marketers at the Coca-Cola Company and learned a lot about that system. So, and then moving from there to Hain Celestial and then to the Kellogg Company. So as we say, there's not really an accident of when successful individuals get there. And what we try to do in the Melt University podcast is enlighten our students that in fact you are an overnight success. It was just a long night. And but Julie, welcome to Virtual Melt University.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, and you can take that intro with you anywhere you go.
That was very gracious. Probably a little generous, actually.
But before we dive into really kind of where the world is going, we really like to always start with our guest. We throw it all the way back to where, your success and your excellence was rooted in passion. And we talk a lot about that to our students. We say, hey, look, college is a formative process, but if you find something that you're passionate about, it could drive your success, because, if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life. So where was sort of where your original drive and passion, where was it rooted?
Honestly, my parents, my father particularly, my father was a pretty successful businessman himself.
Mm-hmm. In Michigan.
Ohio, yes. And he had this saying that I think, I can't even remember as early how young I was when he first started saying this to me. He said, do what you love and the money will follow.
Right.
And his message was not necessarily that you'll make a lot of money. You might not, doing what you love. But when you do what you love, the money doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. And so it just kind of always, I think, gave me the permission to figure out what I really was passionate about. And I didn't know, honestly, even through college.
And that's okay too, right?
Absolutely. I think there were things I knew I liked to do, but I didn't know that I wanted to be in marketing. I didn't know I wanted to be working at a big brand company. I kind of figured that out over time, but I definitely knew the things I liked to do. I loved connecting with people. I loved, kind of solving business problems. I had from a very early age in college, I was like, I loved Coke. There was something that was just drawn to me about Diet Coke particularly. And
Right.
so I would study them.
Right.
Projects I would do in college would be oriented towards Coke, but not knowing that I could be in marketing at Coke, or I could, do some of the jobs that I did there. And so those things kind of just all started to formulate kind of decisions that I made and places that I went with my career as a result.
So just being driven, your parents setting that standard, and then practicing that passion in colleges. And one thing that we encourage all of our students is that no matter what, like when you're, and a lot of them don't think about it, but when you're in the college campus, in the college environment, it's the greatest professional laboratory in the world. Mm-hmm. And we always encourage. I had a fantastic experience, working my way through Auburn University in sports information, mm-hmm. and because at the time I really just wanted to be a sports writer. I wasn't even aware there was a business side of college athletics, and so you graduate and you pack your bags and you decide to light in Atlanta, pre-1996 Olympic halo.
Yes. I came here, no job, only had an aunt that lived in Atlanta, knew I needed to get out of the snow,
right.
for sure. That was really the main motivation. And was fortunate enough to get a job really quickly at an agency. Uh-huh. And that agency is where I started to build my network. And I worked at this agency for a year and a half. And one of the women that I became friends with very early on had gone on to work for Coke. And I just stayed in touch with her because I thought, oh my gosh, she went for Coke. That's amazing. If I could ever work for Coke, oh my gosh. And I just stayed in touch with her, and she got promoted about a year later. And I was the first person that she called. And that's how I got in at Coke. It was who I knew and building that network and those relationships. And that opened the door for me at Coke, which my career went from there.
Well,
sure.
And you hit on a very big topic that we talk a lot about. We talk a lot about relationships. We talk a lot about relationship building and relationship maintenance. And people ask me, like, Vince, how have you been able to represent Coke for 21 years, which is unheard of in our industry? It's a simple answer. I never take the relationship for granted. Mm-hmm. But we talk to our kids like the first two letters of relationship are RE, and the first two letters of reciprocal are RE. And we say relationships need to be treated like a flower or a plant. You've got to groom it, cultivate it, give it sunlight, water it, fertilize it. Talk about, because you right out of the gate, you hit on this, is that relationships and networking, particularly now, there's no excuse not to do it and do it right, because it's in the palm of our hands. In the old days, I had to go to the library and the encyclopedias and all those kind of crazy things. Yellow pages, they got to look at me like I'm a dinosaur. And talk about your philosophy even now, because clearly you've risen to the tops of your profession. Mm-hmm. Your philosophy on relationships.
I like more authentic, kind of organic type of relationships. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of discussion, particularly in kind of corporate America, and is this idea of mentorship. And there's formal mentor programs at a lot of companies, and I think young people particularly say, I need to have a mentor. And what I have found is, like, when I have a relationship with someone that I feel is just very natural and organic, that works itself. And so I find a way to connect with people personally. I look for people that might be, someone I aspire to be, but also who I admire because of, how they live their life, not just because of the job title. One of my longtime mentors is, and really a friend, is someone who very successfully professionally, you would say her title standalone, you'd be very impressed. But what I have been drawn to her is she's a mom of 3 kids. She's written a couple of books. She's traveled the world. Mm-hmm. She's a great cook. She's just kind of carried out her passions in so many ways,
right.
but been able to be successful professionally. And so I've gravitated to, I think, that type of relationship has
Right.
helped me more. I think as I also mentor and coach people, I try and pull that kind of personal connection out as well.
Right.
I just think that the kind of more natural or organic relationship is more meaningful, and you're not going to have it with everyone, you know.
And that's okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it
It's
is.
that's okay
Yeah.
as well. You hit on a couple things. I love the word authentic, but also I love the mentoring aspect. But it's important to seek out mentors. It's important to have mentors, but it's also important to have mentors that will give you tough love when you need
Absolutely.
it, and not sugarcoat it all.
Absolutely.
And I over time I really came to really love that and crave that, because I'm like, everybody will tell you what you want to hear. Not very few will tell you what you need to hear.
Yeah. I am I think another thing my father gave me is that, my dad was always he raised us of saying, that's good, but how can we do better the next time? And to some extent that puts pressure, but it drove me to always think about, okay, what can I do better? How can I achieve more? How can I accomplish, the next level? And I think because of that, I naturally, seek feedback and honesty. And
Right.
so, and I've got a little thick skin around it now too,
Right.
There's this quote of feedback is a gift. But it's true. And if you take it with good intent, it can be a lot more beneficial than the pats on the back, for sure.
One of my greatest professional regrets and mistakes is that I've learned now, but I didn't learn early enough not to take anything personal. Mm-hmm. Because particularly being high energy, creative, you get your feelings hurt if you're passionate about an idea, but you really can't take anything personal. And then we say, they say, Vince, what business you're in? I'm in the rejection business. Like NO though doesn't spell no, it's just not yet. Mm-hmm. Because, you look at all your huge success and, amazing fancy titles and brands and all that, but it hasn't come without some rejection and getting thrown off the saddle and those types of things. I continue to talk to our students about this, is that you really cannot take, because you don't know what went into that no or that rejection or that setback, right?
Definitely, yeah. And I mean, I think too, your ability to bounce back from it and learn to bounce back from it and pick yourself up is as valuable as probably if you would have gotten the job or gotten the opportunity, right? I mean, I think so learning that kind of bounce out of it, bounce back, I think is really important. And so I had this really, really early in my career, right at Coke, I came in, I was so achievement oriented and gung-ho, and I was just like, let me kind of like conquer the world and tell Coke all these great things they need to do. And I was in this meeting and I told a very senior leader, kind of very directly in a room, something that was well intended but delivered in the wrong way.
Style over substance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've made those mistakes as well.
Well, I came in the next morning to work, and on my desk was a handwritten note by my boss, which this is pre-email, but I still, thankfully, it was a handwritten note because I still carry this note. And he was amazing at saying, you have such potential. We see so much greatness in you. But if you don't address this style thing, it's going to be your failure. You're not going to get where you want to get. And it kind of hit me really hard in the moment because he had written in a personal note. And
Which means he cared.
Exactly. And it took me a little bit to get over it, but it was one of the best things that happened to me very early on in my career. And I still have that letter. Every time I see that guy, he's still at Coke, I say to him, thank you for doing that. And it was hard to hear and it set me back a little bit, but gosh, I can look back on that now and say I had to learn how to get myself out of that and be better as a result of it. And, so in the moment it doesn't feel that way, but in retrospect it was.
Yeah. I mean, the tough love there's a reason it's called tough love. Mm-hmm. And I've had those moments and they've been I didn't like it, but it was always the best thing that ever happened. So,
Yeah.
so you get to your dream job, your dream company. A year later, you find yourself working on the Olympic torch relay. So every day you're waking up, pinching yourself, going, "This is amazing. I'm working on with the most fabled brand in the planet." And the most amazing sports property in the world.
Amazing.
And obviously Coke's the longest sponsor since 1928, and it's in our hometown of Atlanta. So, I mean, like, tell us about, I mean, of all this associated Coca-Cola, was that still your favorite job you'd ever had at the organization? I mean,
Oh gosh, Coke is.
you did lead a multi-zillion-dollar initiative, My Coke Rewards. I remember that well.
I mean, Coke is an amazing company.
It is.
And that is one example of 20 I can list that I just had experiences that I wouldn't have had if I didn't have the chance to work at Coke. They have, because of their global footprint,
Right.
the assets, the scale of their brands, the people they attract. I mean, it was just such a gift working there. Certainly that torch relay was a pinch myself moment because I'm 25 or something, doing
Right.
it. So it was very admirable. But I actually think the most value I got out of Coke is the people there.
Oh, yeah.
And working with people that are incredibly smart. Like, it pushed me to be smarter. I always knew I had to walk into a meeting on my game.
Every meeting.
Yes, I had to be on my game.
It's intimidating.
And so that taught me a lot. But then the people I worked with were very passionate about the business. I mean, that they have this saying at Coke, it's like you bleed red, you bleed Coke.
Right.
Because you're so passionate about the business. And I think that combination of, working there 23 years around people that were crazy smart and super passionate about the business kind of just was a great combination for me to continue to kind of push me and grow and kind of want to thrive in that environment. And to me, that was one of the greatest gifts of working there. I saw the world working there. I've been to 47 countries around the
Wow.
world. A lot of it while I was at Coke. Just a lot of cool, experiences like the Olympics. But I think the people and the friendships, I'm still friends with so many people from there.
So clearly your success at Coca-Cola demonstrates to me, and we talk a lot about this to our students, is that you were willing to accept any assignment, and you were willing to always force yourself out of your comfort zone. And one thing that I had been seeing prior to COVID with this younger workforce is that I think they had a false set of expectations that they were going to be the CEO overnight, and if it wasn't met immediately, the economy was so good, it was a seller's market for talent, and then overnight it became a buyer's market for talent. But there is no secret ingredient or recipe to success. I mean, it's the grind, and like I said, I mean, you look at your career, it's just marked by willing to push yourself out of that comfort zone and just grind and grit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I came into Coke in a media role capacity and started in media planning, buying an agency, and then that's how I got into Coke. But I did that for about a year and a half, and I started to observe around me the people that were successful and what they did and what experiences they have. And so I knocked on a senior guy's door one day and said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And I said, "I want to get into sales." Because I saw that if I had that, I kind of stayed the media track, my career was going to kind of end at a certain point.
Right.
But I knew if I could get breadth of experience and learn other parts of the business, I would be able to take that further longer term. And so I knocked on her and said, "Hey, how do I get into sales?" And I had to interview. I prepared like crazy for this interview, and they gave me a shot. And I ended up calling on public supermarkets when they were entering the Atlanta market and growing like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And had a lot of success as a result of that. And that just kind of then opened the possibility for something else that I wouldn't have had if I would have stayed in media. So I continued to just look at ways to build a lot of breadth early in my career potentially, I think that's made a big difference also.
Yeah, we encourage like we have a saying, the only failure is a failure to not try. And then, in my book, I say, the great Gretzky says, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take.
Yeah.
And then, you had the wisdom to see around the corner, like, hey, what business is Coke really in? We're about selling products to retailers and then consumers. And then what we've educated our listeners out about Coca-Cola as well is that, they've got the most unique distribution system in the planet, and that they don't own their North American distribution. And so you're also selling into your partners there. So you have this incredible, long-term career at Coke, Global VP of Ecommerce, shopper marketing, and digital. And, shopper marketing was somewhat nascent back then, but, trying to figure out consumer behavior, and it's really gotten crazy now. It was even getting crazy prior to COVID, but now people's consumption habits of where they consume things, how they consume it, how they make purchasing decisions. And so this, you're the chief global digital consumer and customer experience officer at the, it's a fancy title, at the Kellogg Company. Like I said, one of the most vaunted companies in the world. But so clearly you're okay with pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, but talk about what you do at Kellogg, because what we're also trying to do is we're trying to enlighten students, like, hey, I never thought that there could be a career doing this. And I know it, like I said, I know it's going to be a tumble cycle for them in the entry job level world, but they are the most sophisticated consumers ever. And if they can leverage that into a professional career. So talk about, I want to talk about your role at Kellogg, and then what you're seeing as it relates to the future for our students from career opportunities.
So I'm going to try and explain this as simply as I can. I lead, it's a kind of all things digital for the company. So everything from how do we work with our customers in a digital format, right? How do we take orders from our customers digitally? How do we service them? How do we sell on their platforms digitally? All the way to how do we market to consumers digitally, right? Our websites, our advertising, our, any brand promotions or programs that we have. So kind of that whole end-to-end digital experience is what I'm responsible for. And what we do with that is my role of my team is to help educate the organization. So we have people all over the world that are trying to build their businesses and grow their businesses in Europe or in Asia or in Latin America or the United States. And they need to learn these capabilities. They don't necessarily know them as myself or my team are experts. And so we go into those markets and we help them look at their business, assess their business to see where their opportunities are digitally. And then we help them stand up and build those capabilities so that it becomes part of how they grow in that particular market. It's kind of the most simple way to explain it. I think as we all have seen, particularly more through COVID, that our brand's ability to interact with consumers and customers digitally is mandatory.
And it's moving at the speed of light, right?
It is. I had a job at Coke. I was running digital marketing, and they asked me they said, hey, this e-commerce thing in grocery is starting to become, something. How are you willing to go take a job and figure out e-commerce for Coke? And I went from like a 40-person team with a big budget to like myself, and I was able to hire 2 people, no money. I had to build it from scratch.
Right.
Well, I just saw it was going to be the next big thing, and to be able to be on the ground of it and build a business and build a strategy inside of Coke, became kind of a leapfrog for me in my career. And so I'm still doing that today, and I'm still doing that at Kellogg. I did that at Hain when I was there as well. But that is how, if you look at like Kellogg's growth algorithm and how we're growing, probably about 80% of our total growth is coming from digital now.
Wow.
Because, if you just think about the situation with COVID, but just the way you're behaving, how much more you're buying online. And so it becomes a mandatory for brands like ours to be able to have.
And then you have to run parallel to shifting consumer taste. Mm-hmm. So you have to run parallel to this massive innovation pipeline. Mm-hmm. And then you're in all these other countries and their values and cultures and mores and taste and all that kind of stuff. So during COVID, what's the most significant shift in behavior that you've seen at a macro level?
Oh, definitely the buying groceries online. Definitely. I mean, you've probably read in industry trade publications, but we've kind of leapfrogged about 5 years of development in
1 year.
In 1 year.
Wow.
So it went from, when I started at Kellogg, our online business was about probably 3%, maybe 2.5%, 3% globally. It's now almost 10.
Triple.
And I've been there 2 years. So it's massive, massive growth. And so if you think about that hyper growth for a business, and that's not just Kellogg, that's Coke, that's
right.
Mondelez, all these big brands, grocery brands are experiencing the same thing. When you think about that hyper growth, you've got to really get your act together there, right? Like
because that can be as dangerous as no growth.
Yeah, exactly.
Or more.
Exactly.
So I've had both, so yeah.
Yeah, you've really got to get your act together on your product assortment, on your pricing strategies, on how you're marketing to consumers.
Supply chain,
yeah. And so that's a big focus of where my team has spent in the last year, just building that infrastructure for Kellogg.
Well, and two questions: Do you think consumer behavior will ever go back to where it was, or it'll stay? Mm-hmm. And then, you're managing a global team and global organization virtually. Will that ever change, you think? Or it's been challenging for me, I'll be honest. I mean, it's hard to keep people motivated all the time in a virtual environment.
Yeah. I will tell you, I've been very surprised how productive we've been able to be.
Right.
Shockingly. I think some of it's we're just not spending any time on planes, where my team had a lot of travel. And so that not being on planes every week.
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing.
And by the way, this was overnight shipped.
Yes. It's amazing.
I don't miss that.
No, I don't either. But I do.
That is a good point.
I do miss interacting with people. For example, when you invited me to do this with you today, and you're like, oh, we can do it online or we can do it live. I was like, no, I'm going to get dressed up and put some makeup on, and I'm going to go into their office.
Well, I sure am glad you did.
And I'm going to see, Vince live, because I think that personal connection with people is what, I'm missing and craving to get back to.
Well, I think two things. I think we'll see an explosion in the demand of people going to concerts and dinner and football games, hopefully. And then I think we've all probably learned a great deal of empathy, because you don't know what anybody else is going through at any given time. But I do agree, like we are humans and we thrive on virtual connections and on personal connections I do think that there's going to be we won't know for a long time the impact of COVID on all of our mental and psychological health. Mm-hmm. We won't, because we are social creatures, but so that's a good segue into this new virtual environment. Students and graduates in the entry-level world, we talk to them a lot. They're going to have to be more thorough, more prepared, more innovative in getting Julie's attention if they want to get a consideration set for a job at the Kellogg organization, the Kellogg Company, mm-hmm. Or any company. Mm-hmm. And I'll use a fishing analogy. It used to take 100 casts to get 8 job bites to get 2 job leads. I think it's going to be 500 mm-hmm. to get 8 to get 2, just based on the fact that there's so many people that have been unemployed that are now willing to take a lesser job at a lesser salary to get back in the marketplace. Yeah. And it's going to dilute the entry level. So like I said, it went from overnight a seller's market of talent to buyer's market. But so, and I'm sure you get them, and I get them all the time, but I'm sometimes shocked at the lack of preparation and lack of effort when somebody is seeking a job with my organization. For instance, we have a generic website called Careers at Melt ATL, and I get that email. To whom it may concern, attaches my resume. I need to make X dollars. It could be the Pope, and I don't even open the email. and I'm like, because they're already communicating what type of employee they would be. And it ain't complicated to track me and you down. Like I said, in the old days, I actually had to go to the Yellow Pages and encyclopedias and resource guides. It's in the palm of your hand. And also, I tell them this is not an application, it's a process, it's an audition. They're communicating to Julie what type of employee they would be or teammate they would be.
Absolutely.
So what gets your attention?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. First of all, Julie or Vince is not going to expect a college, senior to have years and wealth of experience.
Right.
We're realistic to what we're hiring at that level. So you are looking for the intangibles, and you are looking for the kind of the DNA of a person. For me, I use this word a lot. Like, my favorite description of someone is scrappiness.
Right. I love that.
I love someone who is a problem solver, can think on their own, does not need hand holding, does not need to be told what to do. Doesn't mean that I or whoever they work for isn't going to help them remove barriers or challenges or solve problems, but they just have this kind of natural tendency to just say, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to work hard to do it. And I call that scrappy. And so I look for that in someone, and you can see that really quickly, to your point, how they present themselves, how they come prepared, their energy levels, and the fire and the passion. I mean, it's all of those things that, you can't teach a person.
Right.
It's who they are. And so I look for that for sure. And, there's definitely some functional things that you're looking for. And, that's obvious. I think it's more those intangibles, so, particularly when you're early in your career.
Well,
right?
because you're right. You don't have a lot to merchandise or brand yourself with. We preach incessantly, like we call it the grandma test. Like I don't care what you post on social media, but if you don't want your grandma to see it, don't post it, because what you and I are looking for is the type of judgment that they use as an employee.
Yeah.
And again, I may or may not agree with something somebody says, but the type of judgment that you're using in what you're posting. And I want you to tell our students, if they don't believe we're not looking at
That's the first thing we do.
Thank you.
I don't even really look at resumes that much
anymore.
Thank you. To be honest with you, I of course use LinkedIn as a resume. It's incredibly easy to find. You just Google and it links to their Facebook or Insta profiles. I mean, it's really easy to, kind of find those types of things. So yeah, you have to be super careful. Yeah.
Yep, because
that is your resume.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's what we say, that that unwittingly or wittingly, everybody is building and showcasing their personal brand now. But it's all tied together. And so, and again, I do say, thank God there was no Facebook when I was at Auburn, because I probably would have used some poor judgment in my behavior, but so
I'll tell a funny story. Like maybe a year ago, I really don't post much on Twitter because of I have people that work for me in my professional. I don't want to be, so I got so upset at something Governor Kemp did in Georgia. I one night late at night posted something about the policy that he came out with. I'm telling you, it was like within a month, I was at an AMA event in Atlanta, and I got asked about that.
And you were like, wow.
Yeah. And it immediately said to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't connect those dots when I posted that.
Yep.
And, fortunately it was kind of, it wasn't that big of a deal, but still, like, think about that.
No, and because, I kind of have a policy, like, first of all, I don't think anybody cares what I think. And secondly, you're going to offend 50% of the population if because of society. And so, like I said, I think we've all, everybody respect. That's what I'm saying. You can post things respectfully, but just, but we're looking for that judgment. And so, not only with the Kellogg organization, but, all of these amazing organizations that you've been a part of, and you've got relationships within all these. What should, in this new world, because I encourage our students to even examine their consumption habits of information and how they purchase things, what should they be doing to prepare and equip themselves? Because kind of a little bit of a beef I have with higher education is that they're getting a great education in the walls of the classroom, but not necessarily prepared to really get that first job with Kellogg or Coca-Cola. What should they be doing to further and better prepare themselves?
Well, I think a lot of it is, think as the consumer, not as the academic, right? So,
Wow, I love that.
So walk a store, or whatever industry
Right.
you're going into, be a consumer in their environment. And so that it makes you start to think about, you're looking at it from a different lens. What do you like? What don't you like? What opportunities do you think they have?
Right.
And so I think that would be for sure number one for me to say, just, think like a consumer. I think the other thing is that if you, there's all kinds of information on companies. So put yourself in the context of kind of the business side of it. Read their annual reports, listen to their earnings.
All of that information.
Listen to their earnings calls from their CEO. Read what analysts are saying about their companies. Go into, I forget what the Glassdoor, read about what employees are saying
Right.
about working there.
Right.
Do your research on the companies, and it'll start to help you understand kind of the business side of it, and a side that you're not going
Right.
to get in an academic.
Right. No, I think that's invaluable advice, and this has been, like I said, this has been, so good. I think, everybody can even hear through this, your energy and your passion for excellence in everything that you do.
Thank you.
So, and we also tell our students, we're like, we're all doing the same thing that you're doing. We're just doing it at a different level now. But
Yeah.
we were once you,
Yeah.
and if you'll take the time and the effort, and you and I are worth a salt, we'll respond. And it may take us a day or two. We're kind of busy, and those types of things. But I think this has been just this has been really, 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 really great. Julie, Chief, I love this fancy title, Global Digital Consumer and Customer Experience Officer.
It's way more fancy than it actually is. So.
I'm the CRO of my organization. I'm the Chief Rejection Officer. But Julie Bowerman, fantastic, amazing, and she's still rocking and rolling and going. But to put together the career he had at the Coca-Cola Company, I love Hain Celestial, and then like I said, my when I pulled into Battle Creek, I was like, oh my God, I was like the Dorothy at the Wizard of Oz, or like the Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory. I was like, oh my God, this is like, I've made a lot of my parents have made a lot of contributions to this. But as we close to in the spirit of relationships, there is the CEO of Kellogg is a former Coke executive. Yeah. And you clearly maintained a tremendous relationship and integrity and stayed in touch, and
that's how I got there.
And so the importance of these maintaining relationships. But Julie Bowerman, thank you so much for the students of Virtual Melt University. We are hoping that we know that you will hear a lot of tremendous positive feedback. So we knowing as busy as you are, thank you so much for your time. And I'm glad you got dressed up and come and sit with us live. So thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll be back soon, students. Virtual Melt University.
Thanks, Vince. We hope you've enjoyed today's virtual class. We'll be back soon with a new edition of Melt University 2021.